Not one away. There it is.
It's
All right. I think we've got all the technological issues solved. Lynn, appreciate the struggles that technology causes sometimes, and you're doing a good job of handling it for us. So thank you. We will start our call this evening as we do with every Sunday and Wednesday Zoom with our signature message. Everyone here can say that I'm a part of a growing team of entrepreneurs with a shared mission to protect and empower 2 million families and small businesses with Legal Shield's network of law firms and world-class identity theft services. What we do matters, and we are looking for help. We all know the message. I'm sure we all have it where we see it constantly, and we've internalized it. And whenever we need to use all or part of that message, it springs through our mouths and immediately. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing our training facilitator this evening. He comes to us with a background in real estate. He's been with Legal Shield for, I believe, 21 years now. He is a Millionaire Club member. I do not know if he's joining us from his home in California or his home in North Carolina or somewhere else on the planet, but it's my pleasure to turn the room over to Mr. Bob Cohen.
Hey, thank you so much, Steve. Great to be here again, and glad to see everybody. This is kind of a continuation. Mr. Drennan had a great idea of this morning's stretch call was so impactful for people that we decided to continue the conversation of objections and how to handle objections in your Legal Shield business. So if you happen to have missed this morning, this will be a great one for you. If you happen to be with us this morning, this is going to be a great refresher. And then we're actually going to have some special guests join us as well. So here's what we'd like to do is just a quick review about objections, just the kind of philosophy that objections are not a bad thing. If you're getting objections, that's good. That means people are actually taking a look at the information. Here's the good news. Normally, the first objection is the worst, as far as the hardest to overcome. But there are ways to handle objections, and you should practice and get good at handling objections. Number one income earner, Dave Savula, one of my favorite ways is, just any objection that you get, go ahead and say, I'm sure glad you said that. It could be like, I don't have the money. I'm so glad you said that. It sounds great. I'm so glad you said that. Just anything that somebody says to you, you literally could come back with those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 words. I'm so glad you said that. Another one that I always like to use as well is the feel, felt, found. Go ahead and write that down and get into the habit of when folks, share with you, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way, but here's what I found. It sounds too good to be true, Bob. I understand how you feel. I absolutely felt the same exact way, but here's what I found out when I actually started using the service. It was the real deal. Okay. Again, some of these things may sound brand new to some of you. Some of this may be a review, which is fine. But again, you see how it just effortlessly, rolls off my tongue. That's because I've practiced. I've gotten the objections and I use them over and over and over and over, when I do get objections. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of open up the video here, and I want to bring on some other folks who are also going to join us. And I think it might be easier. I don't even know how you do this, but I would love to have Mr. Drennan, Millionaire Club member, Mr. John Drennan, maybe if he could show his video, Mr. Ron Chambers, Millionaire Club member, and I think I saw Carlos. I think you guys are 50K ring earners. I would love to have you join us. And then last but not least, I'd like to have Lynn Schuster, if you're available, if you don't have too much going on, Lynn, join us as well, because you shared some great nuggets this morning. So what I'd like to do is let me run across the spectrum here. And, let me start with Carlos. Carlos, you've been a seasoned, you and your wife have been with Legal Shield. Maybe real quickly share your background, how long you've been with Legal Shield. And, what do you do when you get objections? What are typical objections you might get, and how do you handle them?
Uh, Thanks, Bob. I appreciate you allowing me to speak on the call. My name is Carlos Bird. Background formerly with Ford Motor Company. Been with Legal Shield for almost 17 years. Next month will be 17 years. We've been as high as gold executive director and definitely looking to achieve our $100,000 ring. But objections has now become something that just roll off of us now. In the beginning, objections used to not only distract us, but it discourage us from moving forward. But since we've been in the business, seeing and understanding and learning about objections, um, they just roll right off. Sometimes people will they're going to say all kind of things. They're going to say all kind of things.
Yep.
And I remember talking to a gentleman, and instead of me trying to always come back at everything he says, I did like what you said, fear felt found, and I just like I understand, and I kind of like let it go. But surprisingly, this gentleman, he came back and started asking me questions, and we wind up setting up an appointment. I went to his office and talked with him and his wife and got a group out of it and a small business plan. So
Love
instead of
it.
me trying to fight, trying to, battle back and forth, I just say, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
And it worked out. So back
Yeah.
to you, Bob.
Yeah. You got it, Carlos. And we shared this morning. Sometimes you say next, man. It's fine. We're not here to convince folks. We're here to educate. And that's the beautiful thing with Legal Shield. You don't have to be this seasoned, salesperson. In fact, I think sometimes salespeople have a tough time with Legal Shield because they think they got to hammer people and cram this down their throat. No, you're working too hard. I guarantee you're not having fun with your Legal Shield business. So good stuff there, Carlos. Let's run out. How about Lynn? I'd love to have you maybe share a couple nuggets there that, you've written books on the subject. You've coached people on this subject. And this morning, you shared a magic phrase that I'm looking at right now. So would love for you to go ahead and share some of that.
Well, Bob, that's right. That phrase, people have paid me a lot of money to teach them that phrase, to tell you the honest
Yep.
truth. As a sales coach, I've had people come back to me and say, that one phrase you taught me has paid me over and over. And there you'll find once you know it. So I'm about to give you this phrase, just imprint it in your brain. The phrase is, it's been my experience. And it's just hard to argue with that because you can't. I mean, it's my experience. I'm not saying it's your experience. I'm not saying it's some kind of fact that you can test. It's my experience. And so you can use that for objections. You can use it when you're educating, right? You can say, well, it's been my experience when I used the membership this, or it's been my experience that when people look into our service, they find that we have 48 years of experience with top rated law firms, and they really kind of wake up to what a great service it is, right? You can use it in all kinds of ways. And the other thing that's kind of the standard in sales training for objections is know what the likely objections are and head them off at the pass, right?
Sure.
So, we know what people are going to say. They're going to say, you said some of them already. It's too good to be true, or they must be, the worst lawyers ever, or, whatever it is that you think are the likely things given who you're talking to. You can sometimes just address the elephant in the room, and by saying, wow, sometimes people say this, or when I'm talking to people and they get the look on their face that you have, sometimes I know they're about to say this, and you just like address that objection up front and answer their question before they ask it. So that's an old sales training way just kind of address your objections before they happen, and it takes the wind out of their sails. Back to you, Bob.
That's right. I love it, Lynn. And a lot of times I'll even say, how good can these attorneys be? It's a realistic question, $25 a month. And then that's when I'll go in and back up how good these attorneys are. And I'll give the example of Merritt Webb or Parker Stanberry in California. That's a $1.5 million a month law firm at the disposal of Legal Shield members. That's an $18 million law firm right there. It's pretty powerful, and yet we're all paying $25 a month. So good stuff, Lynn. Thank you. Let's run out to the Ohio market. Ron, Millionaire Club member, definitely seasoned veteran here. Go ahead and share a little of your background and how many memberships have you marketed? And I'm sure you've seen your share of objections.
I've seen a couple, yeah. Background is
Sure.
in construction and music my whole life, and approaching about 6,000 memberships here pretty soon over my tenure. I'm not the top salesperson in the company, but I've done all right. And, one of the things I love about our team calls and things like that is a lot of times we plan things out, and sometimes we get a chance to prepare and sometimes we don't. And we're most people don't know it, but we're kind of, shooting from the hip a little bit tonight because we had some other speakers lined up that couldn't make it. But, one of the things about objections, Bob, I want to share it. By the way, I don't know if that's Moon Palace behind you or not, but it reminds me of Moon Palace in Cancun.
It's the Bahamas.
Oh, the
It's
Bahamas.
Paradise
Okay.
Island.
All right.
Yeah.
In the Caribbean somewhere. We've been there, right? But you brought up Dave Savola, and I remember hearing him train on that. I'm sure glad you said that, over and over again. And one day I used that on a guy and it worked magically. It was awesome. The guy never did come on board as an associate, but I felt so good that I was able to overcome his objection with that line. But here's one of the things, some of the stuff that we're learning is from some of the other folks tonight. They're really sharp people. They're smart. They've given things thoughtful. That line that Lynn came up with, it's been my experience, is so powerful and so useful. But, honestly, guys, there's some people on this call like me. You're not that smart. You don't have to be that good. You don't have to be that smart, but you have to have posture and you have to have belief in Legal Shield and the services and what we do for people. And sometimes that's all you need. You'll learn to get better over time on answering objections and doing other things. But the thing that's most important to me is that you have to have a rock solid foundation on what we do and who we are and how we go about doing this more than anything else, because people will tell you all kinds of crazy things and you might be able to come up with a way to overcome that. And maybe you don't, but it doesn't matter. What matters is your belief in what you do and what we do as a company to help people. And so here's my tip. Even if you're not able to overcome an objection, just keep saying say less to more people. Keep talking to people about the service, because listen, I remember Wilbur Smith used to say, you can't sell broke and you can't sell stupid. Wilbur Smith used to say that all the time. This is a no-brainer. Okay? So the people on the other side of the equation, if they have half a brain, they have to be able to see this. It's just too simple to see. So, you want to get better. You want to learn how to overcome objections. And I think that everything that you've heard from everybody else tonight will help you do that. But make sure you're working on your belief in your service and your company and your support team and everything that surrounds you in your business. So that's my tip.
Good. Yeah, that's solid, man. That's good stuff. It's here. And one of the best ways to get that belief, everybody, is use that service. Keep using the service. Keep hearing the success stories of how we're changing lives, how, especially now during COVID, how we're helping people get answers to questions they have from all walks of life. It's pretty amazing. So thank you, Ron, there for sharing good stuff. And let's finish up with Millionaire Club member, Mr. John Drennan. Mr. Drennan, you shared 4 words this morning that I have just been having so much fun using in all different scenarios. And I trust you're going to share your magic phrase and any other nuggets you've seen over your 20 plus year career with Legal Shield.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. Thanks so much. And you guys are so good. I mean, I've got great things written down from you, Bob, and Lynn, and Ron, and Carlos Bird. So those 4 words I shared this morning is, how do you mean? Now think about this, and Jim Rohn said this all the time. There's only going to be 5 or 6 objections to anything. So with Legal Shield, whether it's a membership or associateship, what do we hear? We hear, I can't afford it. I don't have time. I don't know enough people. I'm not sure I can do what you do. Is this network marketing? There's a handful of things. I always answer with, well, how do you mean? Because that's going to help you find what they really mean. They might say, is this network marketing? Some people get defensive and worried about that. I've had people ask me that where I say, well, how do you mean? And they say, well, I just know that's a really great way to distribute products and services. So I'm looking for that. So when you say, how do you mean? They might say, oh, I've heard that doesn't work. Well, how do you mean? Well, my brother had it and he didn't like it. Well, do you know how many times your brother used it? You know, if your brother ever, attended an event, a presentation. And how do you mean, Bob, always works.
Yes. Yeah. And you just said something we haven't said before. Use a person's name. Man, that's the favorite. A person's name is their favorite word in the English language. So thank you. You did it unconsciously, but that's a huge one right there.
Yeah, the good point. 2 other things. One, it's never personal. An objection, whatever they say, it's never personal. And so many people get offended or take it personally. It's never that. Wherever a person's coming from, and as you said earlier, objections are actually good things. They're usually not objections. They're questions, they're exploration, they're curiosity. They don't know what they don't know. They're looking to fill in the blank. So it's never personal. And as Ron said, have posture and just be strong in replying. And everyone who's on right now knows so much more than any prospect. It's a joke. And then finally, I love, Bob, to use to tell people whatever they say. Well, I don't have enough money. I'm too busy. I hear that one a lot. I hear this, the membership's great, but I'm too busy. Here's a phrase I like for that. Hey, use that to your advantage. Here's how. You could invite somebody with a text in 30 seconds. You could send a video in 30 seconds and let them know, hey, I'm super busy right now, but if you like what you see, I'm going to connect you with one of my many partners. Now, what are you saying to that person? What are they saying to that person? They're saying, I can do this even when I'm busy, and they're demonstrating that. Or if a person says, I just don't have any money, I say, use that to your advantage. Here's how. You go from not having money to having money. You can let people know, here's how I got started. I needed money and I found a way. So that's another great phrase, Bob. Thanks for hosting this, and back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Drennan. And, again, that's why we always talk about a 3-way call, especially if you're newer. Get that business partner on the line. Let them handle the objections. That's how I learn. That's how most of us learn, folks. Again, is to go through and have that business partner handle those objections. Your prospect is going to get the answers they want to hear. You're going to learn, what's the correct way, and either collect a decision on your behalf or move that prospect along the line. So with that, everybody, Mr. Drennan, I guess, do we wrap up here? We'll go into our video, or what's the next point?
Well, since you sent it back to me, Bob, we will do that. But I want to commend you. And folks that don't know Bob Cohen, Millionaire Club member, he's part of Shield Nation, not part of Success Partners, but really is, because he participates so much in what we do and contributes so much. Bob, you opened us up this morning. You ran our morning stretch call. That led to doing this Zoom tonight. We all appreciate you. I appreciate you enormously. So thank you so much. And folks, with that, we always wrap up Wednesday night training with a video training. And This one's dear to my heart. I had a chance many times to see Brian Tracy live, and he's just a genius with what he does. And thank you, Steve Beck, for finding this video we're about to enjoy. Good night.
Good night, sir.
In selling, the major obstacle is often objections that customers give you that stop them from buying and stop you from selling. So let me show you 9 different objections that you will get on a regular basis, and you must learn how to recognize these objections and to deal with them effectively. The first type of objection you will get is an unspoken objection. The customer has concerns with your offering, but doesn't tell you anything. The solution to unspoken objections is to let the prospect talk more. Ask open-ended questions like what and where and when and how and how, why and who and how and so on. Lean forward. Listen intently to the answers and nod. The more a prospect has an opportunity to answer your questions, the more likely it is that he or she will tell you exactly what might be holding them back from buying. Ask good questions and listen carefully to the answers. The second form of objections you will get is excuses. Now, these are usually instinctive reactions to any sales approach. They're not personal. Excuses are not really serious either. The best salespeople, when they get an excuse, they just nod and smile and agree, and then they ask a question to take control of the conversation. The very best way to handle any initial sales resistance, including excuses and impulse responses, is with these wonderful words. Person says, I can't afford it, I'm not in the market, we don't need it right now, we don't want it, and so on. You say, that's all right. Most people in your situation felt the same way when I first called on them, but now they have become our best customers and they recommend us to their friends and family. This immediately stops people and causes them to say, oh, really? Well, what is it that you have then? And their objections just fall away like scaffolding falling down outside a building. The next type of objections are called malicious objections. Because you call on many different people, you'll occasionally call on individuals who are unhappy or angry about their current situations. Since they cannot shout at their bosses or their spouses, they take it out on the friendly salesperson. They take it out on you. Now, these people tend to be negative in their demeanor and behavior. The way to deal with malicious objections is to realize that you are not the target. Your job as a professional is to remain calm, confident, positive, and polite throughout, and then just ask more questions about what the customer is doing and what their plans are for the future. You take control by asking questions. The fourth most common type of objection is a request for information. This is the best type of objection for you to hear because you know how to answer this as well or better than any other part of your presentation. Whenever a prospect asks for information about the results or benefits of your product or service, you're moving into an excellent field position to make a sale. Another type of objection is the show-off objection. Sometimes prospects try to show you how much they already know about your products and services. They make sophisticated observations, or they ask you complex questions about your product or service or industry. When this happens, respond by taking the low road. Show how impressed you are by how much the prospect already knows. Boy, you know a lot about this. I didn't realize that. Wow. In other words, flattery is a wonderful way to build a good quality relationship. Remember, when you make a prospect feel important by listening to him or her with rapt attention, the prospect is much more likely to warm up and buy from you in the end. The sixth most common type of objection is a subjective or personal objections. Now, these objections are aimed at you as a person. Whenever a prospect becomes critical of you, it could be a sign that you are talking too much about yourself. If this happens, it's important to make the customer the center of attention, and the subjective objections will stop. How do you do that? You start asking questions about the customer and listening closely to the answers. You may also hear the objective or factual objection. Now, these are directed at your product or service offering and the claims that you make in terms of what it will do for the customer. If you can answer an objective question like, how does this work? And how can I be sure it will do this? And what kind of proof do you have? If you can answer this type of objection, you can often close the sale. People often ask objective objections or factual objections when they're just about ready to buy and they just need a little more reassurance. The eighth most common form of objection is what we have called general sales resistance. This always occurs at the beginning of a presentation. Until you neutralize this general sales resistance, the customer will be listening to you with a closed mind. When the customer relaxes and gives you permission to ask him questions, you immediately begin your pre-selected, open-ended questions to qualify the prospect and find out what he really needs that you can provide for him. For example, I have found if you just say, "May I ask you a question?" If the prospect says yes, or "May I ask you a couple of questions?" When the prospect says yes, the prospect has also said, "I will answer the questions if you ask them." This is a wonderful way to break the ice and lower resistance. The ninth most common objection is called the last-ditch objection. Now, you've made your presentation and the prospect clearly sees how she would be better off with your product or service. She knows and understands what you're selling and how much you're asking. She's on the verge of making a buying decision, but she still hesitates. In this case, you listen with respect to their final objections and then assure the prospect that yours is an excellent product or service at a good price and that everyone who is using it today is very happy with their decision. You have then overcome the last-ditch objection and you can go on to close the sale.